Okay.
Right, Sharif. I'm gonna have to stop him.
Okay.
Peace, everybody. We're back for the second lecture. It's going to be entitled, the last one was wonderful, it was on fire, man. I loved it. Yes. This one is going to be called An Overview of the Historical Origins of Christianity. And with that, I give you back Dr. Walter Williams.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm back now. And we had a little break, and I hope everybody got refreshed. And now we're going to settle in on our second lecture. I want to give some thanks to people like Brother Shabazz and his wife, Jamila, again for bringing me to New York. And I also want to give thanks for my wife, Arnetta, for preparing me to come here and be my companion while I'm here.
That's right.
But one of the main things is that I can't stay.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. But while here in New York, I can't stay. My wife and I, we can't stay in the streets, right?
That's right.
So therefore, we have two gracious hosts and hostesses in the name of Lady Brown and Clemson Brown. So we have to point out the kindness of the Browns for having us as guests in their home. Okay, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay. I want to give a short overview. I didn't intend to talk as long as I did on the first lecture, but you know how you get carried away and you get caught up and you just continue, you know, and then I'm long-winded anyway. Okay? That's a good thing. So I'm going to give you a short overview on Christianity. The next time that I'm invited back to New York by Brother Shabazz.
That's right.
And his wife, Jamila, I'm going to be prepared to give a lecture, a full lecture on the historical origin of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism.
All right.
Okay? But I'm going to start off doing that. I'm not going to put that last, and then start a lecture and then be tired. You know. So anyway, I want to, give you an overview on Christianity because our people, our African people, are hung up and caught up in these various religions, as we mentioned before in the first lecture. So I want to bring out some historical facts about these various religions. And the very first religion is Christianity. Okay? That's our very first religion that was created by man. And the people who created the religion called Christianity, and the people who created this image, this is a created creature, never existed. Okay? But this is a created creature called Jesus the Christ, created in Egypt, in Africa, by our Melkite Coptic Egyptians. Those were the Uncle Toms of antiquity. Okay? They were the Colin Powells. They were the Condoleezza-Rice. They were the Clarence Uncle Tom ass. Okay? So they're the ones that created this image. But this image in Christianity was created for the Europeans. It wasn't created for us. So it's very important to know that. Another thing I want to bring out, the importance of the polemic. The word polemic means argument. This argument over the human nature of this created creature known to us today as Jesus the Christ. This argument went on for 921 years, whether this thing here that we call Jesus the Christ had a human nature or not. 921 years. But see, no one is telling you that. But I wrote this book for one race of people, African people, living in America and throughout the world. This is a message in here for you. Okay? And I wrote it not to sell to the world. I wrote this book for you, information for our African community. Okay? And I don't make a living selling books. I don't make a living writing books. That's not how I make my living. Okay? I don't make a living giving lectures. I used to have an ancient Egyptian museum for 11 years in Chicago. I sold the building and put the artifacts into storage in the year 2001. Okay, so we're going to do something else with the ancient Egyptian artifacts that I have. It's going into another museum to resurrect the ancient Egyptians. Okay, so I'm serious and sincere. Okay, I will tell you the truth and bring the facts with the truth. People ask me, saying, what is the truth? Truth is very wide. I mean, it can be interpreted by people in general. But in the first lecture, I gave you the truth. You know what the truth is? You are the truth. Every human being on earth is the truth. You walk around with the truth inside of you. That's your spirituality. So therefore, you can't deny that. There's no argument over that. So in my writings and research, I try to look for the truth. I always go and look for the origin of a subject. Like I told one young man this evening, go and find the origin of that subject. And when you do that, you will be laying a foundation of understanding about that subject, what you're talking about, whatever the subject may be. If you don't know the origin of it, then you don't know the subject. And you have to know dates. Dates are very important. Like I teach my students. If you want to be a scholar, a historian, you have to know dates. Very simple. If you don't know dates, you know historian. Then you're just talking barbershop talk, pool room talk. I ain't talking outside of your neck. See? Because if you tell me so-and-so, I say, okay, what date was that? You say, well, I don't know. Then you don't know the subject. Okay? Come and tell me, well, the documents, they found documents that said something. Okay, what alphabet was the document written in? I don't know. Then how can you bring this to me? Know something. So in this book, in each book, I put, as I end my writings, I always bring you facts, which are stronger than argument. This is what was told to me many years ago about facts. I was told that facts is stronger than argument, more dependable than opinions, more profound than reasoning, silences dispute, supersedes predictions and facts, always in the argument. You bring facts, that's it, it's over. See, there's no more arguing over the facts. See, then you don't understand the facts. See, so today, this evening, I'm going to bring you some facts concerning Christianity and this image that we know today as Jesus Christ. Now, I've been studying for over 30 years now. And when I first began to study, let me back up a little bit. See, I used to be a professional jazz musician. I used to play the saxophone. You know, Charlie Parker and Sonny Stitt, those are my guys. You know, I used to play bebop. You know, one of the bebop, I had my little tam on, you know. Had my axe, you know, going to the gig, you know. Hey, that was the time. But anyway, I met a musician which was old enough to be my father at the time, right out of high school, by the name of Sun Ra. Sun Ra used to live in New York. But I didn't play that outer space music. We played contemporary jazz, all the things you are. What is this thing called Love, Stardust, Embraceable Youth, songs like that. So we used to go up on the 4th floor. He had an apartment up there on the 4th floor in the building in Chicago. So all the young cats, I was right out of high school. All the young cats used to go up there and listen to Sun Ra philosophize from early, in the evening to early in the morning. You know, I was in trouble many mornings coming home to my mother. Boy, where you been? I've been worried about you. Bam! You know. But anyway, what he told us, Sun Ra said that we were descendants of the greatest people that has ever lived on planet Earth, known to us today in history as the ancient Egyptians. Now, out of high school, you know, the school system don't teach us that. They teach us away from ancient Egypt. They teach you, when I went to school, they gave me a book called Little Black Sambo. You know about that too, don't you? Okay. Now, this is what I was supposed to be, Little Black Sambo. Therefore, all you young people who don't know anything about Black Sambo, such as Jamila, and a few others in here. But anyway, Little Black Sambo was a little African boy who took the tiger by the tail and went around a tree, round and around and around, until both turned to butter. But they gave Little Black Sambo to the white children too, the white kids. That was to make them feel superior over us. And Little Black Sambo was supposed to make us inferior. But see, Little Black Sambo has fooled them. Little Black Sambo found out that I was a descendant of the greatest people that has ever walked this earth, known to us today in history as the ancient Egyptians. Isn't that something? I found that out through Sun Ra. You see? So, long story short, I get married. My wife and I took a trip to Italy. And they were showing us through Italy some of their ruins and the supposed history and so forth and so on. And I was feeling very bad because I didn't have anything to show the world as a Negro, okay? Until the tour guide said on the wrong bus, said, and when the Romans went to Egypt to receive their civilization, I said, uh-oh, big light bulb illuminated inside of me. I said, my goodness. If these Europeans went to Egypt to receive their civilization, and I was told that I was descendant of the ancient Egyptians, then I should know something about it. Huh? So what I did, when I got back to America, I went and got me a magnifying glass and every pictorial book on ancient Egypt that I could find. And what I was looking for through my magnifying glass was to look at all of those depictions that saying that these are ancient Egyptians. And I wanted to find out whether these depictions look like me and look like you. And once I was convinced of that, that's where I started my studies. Now, let's move on, okay? If you want to clap, it's okay. So then I began to look for any book or books that had history attached to it. Any book. You know, I was just like a fiend. And books was coming everywhere. Because, see, your mind is very, very powerful. Okay? Whatever you put up here that you want to attract in your life, it'll come. Because like attracts like. You see? You know, one time, my wife and I, we collect antiques, okay? And I was, at one time, just say for instance, antique rugs. Rugs was coming out of everywhere. Because I had put it in my mind. I ended up with about 22 Oriental, not Oriental, but rugs. old antique rugs and things, good condition and so forth and so on. So I'm just showing you how your mind can attract whatever you put in it, So these history books are just coming into my life, and I'm studying, And you have to study the subject until you get a foundation and a concept. See, like other young musicians just come to me and say, "Hey man, I want to play jazz." I said, "Okay, what instrument you play?" "Well, I play the trumpet." I said, "Who?" He said, "Who you want to play like?" "I want to play like Dizzy Gillespie." Well, then you get every Dizzy Gillespie record that you can find, and listen to nobody but Dizzy Gillespie until you get a concept of what he's doing. And then after you get that concept and get you a foundation inside of you, then you can listen to any type of music because you know what they're doing, because you have a foundation. So I had to do the same thing in studying history, And a young man came to my museum, and I was telling him about some things that he was bringing to me. I said, "Well, historically, that's not correct." So he was frustrated, so he ran home and got a great big old box of books. And he came in and he dropped them at my feet. He said, "Now, which one of these books should I read?" I said, "You take all these books and throw them out." I said, and I told him what to do to begin his studies. I said, then you can go back. Once you get your concept and your foundation in you of understanding what you are trying to achieve, then you can go back and read those books and you know exactly what's in them. See, I can pick up a book and look at the table of contents. I can tell you whether the book has any value or whether I'm wasting my time. So anyway, I was down one day in the studio of one of my high school musician friends. We all came out of DuSable High School. He was teaching a saxophone lesson. He's a saxophone player. He's still playing music. And he had a shelf full of books. So while waiting for him to teach his student and finish up with his student, I went over to his bookshelf and I picked up a book called The Outline of History. And when I picked that book up, see, this is all pertaining to how I got to discover. See, I didn't set out to discover and prove that there was no Jesus Christ. That's not my intent. That wasn't my intent. I had no idea that there was no Jesus Christ. I had no idea it was that. Okay? Because I had believed that there was a Jesus Christ. But even though my family were not staunch Christians. I went to church one time that I can remember as a boy. And my mother and I went to the church, and that minister, old Reverend Chicken Wing, he said, "And God wants you." And I jumped up and ran out of the church. And my mother ran after me, my heart is beating, and I'm sweating, and carrying on. She, never went back since. You okay? It frightened me. And I want God to want me. May kill me, who knows? God may do like he did those tsunami victims. Huh? He killed over 250,000 people. Huh? I asked the religious people, said, where was God? All those people prayed to God, didn't they? But they died. Huh? Where was God? Huh? You see that? Martin Luther King's mother and father was in the church. They were good Christians. They prayed all the time. They got assassinated in there. Where was God? Where was God when the Europeans came into Africa and took our ancestors out and made slaves out of them, terrorized them in this country to make slaves? Where was God? You see? So that God is very dangerous. Okay? But getting back to how I came about the understanding of learning what the history of Christianity was about. So I picked this book up called The Outline of History by H.G. Wells. And next time I come, I'll bring that book. Yes. And I opened up the page to that book, and I saw an image in that book just like this. it said under the caption of this picture, I said, that's Jesus Christ. But it says Serapis. I said, Serapis? I said, this is Jesus the Christ. Looks exactly like Jesus Christ. Then I began to read. Now listen to this. I began to read on the pages that was attached to this Serapis image that we know today as Jesus Christ. I began to read that in the cult of Serapis, he is spoken of as the Savior. I said, what? I said, this is the same attributes that they give to this Jesus the Christ. Then it went on to say that he raises the dead. I said, what? Raises the dead? I said, this is the same attributes that they give to this Jesus the Christ. Then it says that even after death, you will always be in his presence. Don't Reverend Chicken Wing tell you all that at these funerals? Huh? Say, oh, Moses gone on to be with the Lord. Huh? You see? So I said, these are the same attributes that they're given to this Jesus the Christ. I said, wow. I said, what's going on here? So it says Serapis. And I put a tracer of us focusing in on Serapis only through study. And I began to research Serapis. And I found out that this Serapis was given to the successor of Alexander the Greek. I don't use the Great because I'm not going to call no European great that tried to destroy my ancestors. I'm not going to do that. I can give you the Greek. That's the best I can do for him. Okay? Not the Great. And when Alexander came into Egypt, I'll tell you how it started. He is the first known European to come into the continent of Africa in Egypt. Historically known. Okay? He came in 332 BCE. Didn't have to have an army to invade. You know why? Because the ancient Egyptians never had an army. Nor did they have jails. They didn't have no jails. Civilized people don't have armies and jails. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? Only corrupt people have jails. If you have a corrupt government, quite naturally the people living in the secular community going to be corrupt. So when they get out of line, you put them in jail. Okay? And you have an army. What is your army for? To go around and terrorize other people around the world. Rape their women, take their land, steal from them, kill them, take their resources, everything. That's what you need an army for. Okay? Now, anybody seen the picture, the movie called Alexander? If you go to see Alexander, my wife and I, we went to see Alexander. It's a funny thing about Alexander, that movie. They showed Alexander killing, robbing, stealing, all throughout the movie. And they only talk about Alexander going into Egypt. They never showed Alexander coming into Egypt. You know why? First, if they showed Alexander coming into Egypt, they would have had to show Africans in Egypt. They didn't want to do that. Secondly, they would have showed that the ancient Egyptians had no army. You see? A civilized people, the ancient Egyptians, civilized this whole entire world of all races. Creeds and color are using the civilization and the culture of the ancient Egyptian, right? At this very moment that I'm talking to you. You cannot go around to civilize other people throughout the world and then bust them upside their head at the same time and rape their women at the same time and plunder their land and steal from them and lie and cheat. You can't do that. You're out of cosmic order. Okay? You're out of cosmic order. You're out of cosmic order when you embrace a religion. You're out of tune with cosmic order. You see that? Wow. We have to bring balance back to this world. And we're the only people on earth that can do that. Bring balance. No other race of people can do that because we are the Pied Pipers of the world. The world is following this American African Negro who's been trained to call himself a Negro, Black, and African American. The world is following us. If we turn our caps backwards, they do it too. They don't know why they're doing it. They're following us. Okay? When we do the electric slide, they're out there doing the electric slide too. You see? So when we rap, they're out there trying to rap too. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. When we hip hop, they wear them old baggy bitches and showing the crack of their behind. They don't know what they're doing. They're following this Negro. See, we're the Pied Pipers. See, and then they have a television program that comes on every Saturday. Okay, and what's the name of it now? Soul Train. They have Soul Train to teach white people and the other races of people how to dance. Why do you think that? Why do you think it's been on so long? Look, Don Cornelius got so old his face dropped. Okay? Had to go in retirement. Soul Train is still on. White folks, they out there every weekend trying to learn the latest dance because we change dances on them every week. 1 week we're killing roaches. Kill that roach, squish, squash, you know. Next week we're doing the boogaloo, you know. So they can't keep up with us. So they do that by way of Soul Train. See? So when you embrace a religion, I have to interject all this stuff. It's all basically the same thing. When you embrace a religion, you're out of tune with cosmic world order. We're the only people that can bring balance back to the world. Okay? Only people. Okay? So I'm talking about the American African. The American African. You see that? We're the only ones. Because the other Africans out there, oh, miss, they out of it. Brother Clemson went to Ghana and he told me that Nigeria and Ghana too. And Ghana too. I've said Ghana. He went to Ghana and Nigeria. They had some of the biggest posters of this Jesus the Christ, white Jesus.
I know about it.
You know about it?
Yeah.
You know, they're all on the bus praying and singing to Jesus. You know, so hey, we have to mark them off. We have to start here in America, okay? Where the leading Africans live, okay? So now, here you have, going back to the historical origin of Christianity, I found out that when Alexander came into Egypt, didn't have to bring an army like I mentioned, but he was in awe of what he saw. He said, wow, look at these people here. Look at this civilization. They didn't have to, they're doing this peacefully. They didn't have no armies and they're not fighting and killing each other. See? Because every white man and every white woman and every white child you see walking on earth today are descendants of savages. I'm not making fun of them. This is their record. I didn't make their record. Huh? Did I make their record?
No.
Okay. When a criminal go before the judge, and the judge has his record before him, he say, "Oh, I see you have stole cars, you have broken into homes, you have raped women, you know, and so forth." Who made that record? The thief. or the person before the judge. So when I make that statement, I'm not criticizing them. I'm bringing facts. Stronger than argument. More profound than reasoning. More dependable than opinion. Silences dispute. Supersedes predictions and facts. Always ends the argument. You see? So now, Alexander comes into Egypt in 332 BCE. He lived for 9 years and he died. His army general, Ptolemy I Lagi, took over Egypt. And the Greeks and the Romans knew that in order to rule Egypt, they had to be accepted by the ancient Egyptian sacred society. They had to be accepted by them. But our ancestors did not take foreigners into their sacred society. They handpicked their own African kind to come in. Okay? So when they tried to get in, they was turned down. Said, no, we don't do that. We don't. And then our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, did not race mix. They didn't mix with no race. Other races, foreign races. Even though they went around the world civilizing other races, but they never mixed with them. Okay? So this Ptolemy thought up a great idea. He went and found him a temple in Memphis, Egypt, to make his image into a god. And what these group of Melkite Coptic Egyptians did, they took two of our deities, Osiris and Apis, and came out with the name Serapis. And they gave it to this image that you now see as Jesus the Christ. Gave it to Ptolemy I Lagi, called Soter. The word S-O-T-E-R means Savior. Okay? This is the image that you're worshiping today as Jesus the Christ, the Savior. This is the image of Ptolemy I Lagi, the successor of Alexander the Greek, after Alexander and the Greeks came into Egypt. You see that? This is the image. So he went to the temples and said, okay, now that I am made into a god, accept me. They said, no, we're not going to do that, man. We still won't accept you. So he closed down all of the temples throughout Egypt. And except for the temple in Memphis, Egypt, that made his image into a god. And he confiscated all of their divine scroll manuscripts from those other temples and housed it into the temple in Memphis, Egypt, where they had made his image into a god. But that image was named Serapis. It's in this book, Serapis. Okay? And then he began to try to get the grassroots Coptic Egyptians to accept this image like they accepted their deity, Osiris. Now you look at this deity of Osiris, that's one of our ancestors. Now who does this Osiris image look like? It looks like us, don't it? Huh? Looks like us. We don't look like this. You see that? It's a difference. See? So now, since we didn't do that, he closed down all the temples throughout Egypt, confiscated all of our sacred writings from our ancestors' temples throughout Egypt, housed it into the temple in Memphis, Egypt, that made his image into a deity, supposed deity, known as Serapis. They took two of our deities, Osiris and Apis, and put it together and made a composite of the two names of Osiris. Gave him the name of Osiris or Serapis. Okay? So every Ptolemy that ruled Egypt thereafter became the vicar of Serapis, who sat on that throne. Just like the Pope over in Rome today. He is the vicar of Christ. That means the same as. The vicar means same as Christ. You see? So these Ptolemy and Roman rules became the same as Serapis. the same as this image. You see that? But in the meantime, his grandson, Ptolemy III, Eugetes I, the grandson of Ptolemy I Lagi, called Soter, who this image of Serapis was made into a god, now known today as Jesus Christ. He built a temple and a library that was adjacent to that building, a temple called the Serapeum Temple. And the library that he built, the adjacent building, is called the Great Library of Egypt. Okay? And he built other temples throughout Egypt. Okay? He built the Mithraeum in Syria. That's all part of, like I told you, that area over there in Syria is part of the African continent. See? But those Greeks was ruling all that area over there. See? So he built another temple to his grandfather in Canopus, Egypt. Okay? But we're going to concentrate on the Serapeum Temple in Alexandria, Egypt, where this supposed great library was made. Because there's a lot of misinformation floating around about the Great Library of Egypt. They said, tradition is saying that the teacher of Alexander the Greek was one Aristotle, and that Aristotle wrote hundreds of books, and Alexander the Greek built the Serapeum Temple and this great library adjacent building next to the Serapeum Temple, beside story goes, to house Aristotle's book. But when you search a little further, you'll find out there was Ptolemy III Eugetes I who built the great library and this Serapeum Temple in Alexandria, Egypt. Okay? So now, I come along and said it's never been an Aristotle, like I told you before. Or Socrates never happened, never been in human form, or Plato. Why? Herodotus never been human. The Greeks had no alphabet. So how can Aristotle write all these books? Okay? And I told you that when Alexander the Greek came into Egypt and forced the Greek language on our ancestors, and our ancestors were the only literate people on earth with 3 forms of writing, they applied an alphabet after learning the Greek language to the Greek language. Today they say that this is the Greek alphabet. That's a misnomer. It's all in my book. So here you have this library. But what Ptolemy III Eugetes I did, he went into Memphis, Egypt, because his grandfather had closed down all of those temples throughout Egypt because they wouldn't worship him. He went into Alexandria, Egypt. Went into Memphis, Egypt, and got all those scrolls out of there and housed them into this Serapeum Temple, the annex building. That's the reason why today it is called the Great Library of Egypt. Because in order to have a library, you have to have literature. In order to have literature, you have to have an alphabet. Okay? And a form of writing. So let that be known. So, don't get hung up in that, but it's in my book. Now, in the meantime, all these Ptolemy rulers, after Ptolemy I Lagi, now this happened, this image of Serapis, using the image of Ptolemy I Lagi, happened in 320 BC. 320 BC. Okay? It's in the book. 320 BC. And because he took power in 323 after the death of Alexander. So in 320 he did all this going around to the temples and asking them to make his image into a god, was refused. And he closed them all down until he found his temple in Memphis, Egypt, to make his image into a god. Now we are going to fast forward a little bit. I hope you're getting the picture of how this Christianity started out and how this image was created. We're going to fast forward into the time of Arius. Okay, we're talking about 600 years later. This image was made in 320 BC. BC times, you count down. That's how you count BC times, down. Now we're going into around 313 and 319. ABCE. I can't use AD. If I use AD, then I would be trapped, because AD means anano-diamony. Okay? That means in the time of our Lord. See, so there was no, in the time of our Lord, there's no Jesus Christ. So I can't use anno-dinominy. Okay? I have to use A, B, C, E. That's my own term. After B, C, E ran out. See? So you're not going to get me hung up in that. See? So, smart, right? Okay. Anno Domini, that's what it is. Anno Domini. But anyway, in the time of our Lord. We're going to come up to the time of the Nicene Council. The first Nicene Council. 325 ABCE. Okay? All right? We're going to come up to that. Now, there are three things that brought about the Council of Nicaea I, 325. And I think that I'm the only scholar that's bringing this out in this book of any race, creed, or color. I'm saying that the three things was the Donatist schismatic controversy, the donation of Constantine, and a strong statement by Arius. And I break all that down in my book. The Donatist schismatic controversy was a North African schism among the Africans themselves, because they had a separate community, because when Ptolemy I Lagi was refused entrance into the temples in Egypt, they refused him because they didn't accept foreigners, and they didn't look upon him as a god. So he closed them down. But they were forbidden to create any other temples for religious fellowship, so they used their homes and the cemetery to do that. Okay? The cemetery was used to honor their martyred dead, like we honor Martin Luther King. It's done at a cemetery around his grave and so forth and so on. We used our homes to fellowship, because we were forbidden to build any other buildings for that purpose. Okay, this is what the Greeks forbidden us to do, our ancestors to do. Okay, so here you have the Donatist schismatic controversy, which is a North African schism. It's all in encyclopedia. You look up any encyclopedia, look up the Donatist schismatic controversy. It's there. And this is a North African schism. It happened like this. Diocletian, who was the Byzantine ruler at the time, wanted members of our exterior Coptic community to turn over their sacred writings to him. And Mensurius, who was a member of the Coptic Egyptian community, turned those writings over. Donatist, Bishop Donatist, said he shouldn't have done it. Okay? And this caused a schism. Then here comes Bishop Secundus, the metropolitan bishop. He comes in and joins Donatists. Say, you shouldn't have done it. You should have martyred yourself, just like your predecessors before you did. And that is known in history as the Donatist schismatic controversy that split our African unity in the grassroots communities. Just like in Chicago, there was Harold Washington running for mayor. You remember that? We in Chicago, the African community was unified behind him, and we voted and put him on the 5th floor of City Hall. When he died in 1987, there was a split in our African community in Chicago between Eugene Sawyer and Tim Evans, running for 2 African brothers running for mayor of Chicago. And that caused a split in our community, a weakness, and a white man came up in between that split, Mayor Richard Daley, that you have today. Okay, so the same thing in the Donaldson Systematic controversy. That controversy and that split in the African community gave Constantine the bright idea. Said, now we can, I can get this community, since it's split, to accept Serapis. See, they needed our African spirituality to spiritualize this. You see? See, so when you whoop and holler in church, oh, I love Jesus, and room at the cross and all that kind of stuff, you're spiritualizing this thing. See? So this is what happened. So what he did, Constantine did, he found a member in our African community by the name of Sylvester I. And went up to Sylvester and said, Sylvester, I will give you my imperial emblem on a temporal basis if you will accept this offer. And it's known in history as the donation of Constantine. Get your encyclopedia, like I said, it's there in the book. Okay? I don't be making up stuff that one cannot come behind me and do the research. Okay? I cannot go before the whole world and walk up on the world platform and say, hi world, there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ. I better know what the hell I'm talking about. And I better have some history to back up what I'm talking about. Okay? So it's known in history as the donation of Constantine. He says, Sylvester, if you accept this donation, I will give you my imperial emblems over your people, the Coptic Egyptian. Okay? And all I want from you is for you to baptize me in your African community and make me part of you all. Okay? That's all. That's what he wanted to do. And said, I'm going to give you my authorities where you can be the HNIC of the Coptic community. Everybody know what HNIC means? Okay. You want me to say it? You don't want me to say it? Okay. No, I ain't going to say it. My wife said don't say it.
Can he say it?
Yeah, go ahead. What does it mean?
Head nigga in charge.
Head nigga in charge. Oh, okay, fine. HNIC. Okay? So, he made Sylvester accept that. It's known in history as the donation of Constantine. Okay? 313, 314. That's when it happened. Then Arius, a Coptic Egyptian brother, comes along and says, well, hold it. He says, he makes a strong statement after that donation was given and accepted by Sylvester I. He says, this image, we're talking about Serapis, he says, when you read the Arius statement, they're going to say Christ. Because, see, they have taught the world that this Jesus Christ was born during the time of Herod and died in 30 A.D. This is tradition. So they're going to have to use the term Christ when they talk about Arius. Okay? But it was Serapis. He said, this is what he said about Serapis. He said, Serapis is a created creature. Listen to this. A created creature dissimilar from the Father. Who is the Father? Osiris. That's the Father. When people talk about God, this is God. See? That's God they're talking about. But they tell you that this is the Son of God. They don't even mention Osiris. You see that? They tell you that this is the Son of God. And you Christians sit up there and don't say nothing. They tell you Christians, say, God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, to save the world from sin. Is that right? Now, his only begotten Son is a European white man. Huh? Is that right? Brother Shabazz, Brother Clemson, and all the other brothers, including myself, we can't be the Son of God. Because we don't have no long, blonde, flowing hair. We have no blue eyes. We're not white. We're not European. Only Europeans should be the Son of God. He said, I sent my only begotten Son. That means that when Shabazz thinking that he is the Son of God, he's gonna die and go up to heaven to be with his Father God, he's gonna be met by security guard. They're going to say, who did you come to see? I came to see my Father. Who is your Father? God is my Father. No. They're going to get an intercom. God. There's a Negro out here who says that he's your son. And God going to say, you know damn well I don't have no Negro as no God. Huh? Chinese can't be the Son of God either, can they? Mexican can't be no Son of God, only the European. Is that right? So, but the Christians don't say nothing. They sit up there and say, that's right, brother. Talking about Reverend Teeny Weeny. He preaches all this old garbage out to them, and they agree with it. You see that? But Arius said that this image was a created creature dissimilar from the Father being Osiris. Where's the Father being Osiris in the ancient Egyptian divine triad? You see that? The triad consists of Osiris the Father, Isis, the Holy Hathor Cow Mother, and Horus Jr., the S-U-N. That's the Son. But now, they put at the Council of Nicaea. Well, yes, but we're going to get there in a moment. Arius said that this creature here, Osiris, was a created creature, dissimilar from the Father, meaning not like the Father. A perfect creature, but a creature nevertheless. And that caused the Council of Nicaea, those three things, the Donatist Schismatic controversy, the donation of Constantine, and the strong statement by Arius, caused that council meeting to come about. Okay? Constantine had nothing to do with it. A lot of people think Constantine, he didn't call it. He had no authority. Why didn't he have no authority? He was a member of the Coptic Melkite community. He had been baptized because he gave away his authority. You see that? So he didn't call it. He had no authority to do that. He just sit there and presided over the function. It was the Melkite Coptic Egyptians called the Council of Nicaea I to come about in 325. And when they called that council meeting, they took this image of Serapis and went into the ancient Egyptian divine triad, the one I just mentioned, and took out Horus Jr., the S-U-N, and they put it in this thing here. Serapis, known today as Jesus the Christ, as a son of God. Now who is God? Osiris. See? You see that? Took and put the S-O-N in there, a white image. You see? Have you ever heard the term that Christ, Jesus the Christ, is the Son of Man? That's true. Because man cannot make anything with life in it by himself. He can't do that. Is that right? So therefore, man can only make creatures. See? So this is a creature. That's what Arius said. Said this is a creature dissimilar from the Father. A perfect creature, but a creature nevertheless. You see that? See, this thing is deep. See, you're going to church and sitting in the pews, you don't have to think.
That's what they don't. They don't want you to think.
They don't want you to think. Just believe. Have faith. If you ask too many questions, they're going to say, sister, you're not ready. We're going to pray for you. See that? See, 921 years they argued over whether this thing had a human nature or not. So that was the first council meeting that ever came about, religious council meeting that ever came about in world history. Okay? Now, you go up 56 years later to the council. Let me go back. At the Council of Nicaea I, they made this image and created what is known as the Apostles' Creed, known as the Homoousios Creed. See, the Homoousios Creed goes like this: God the Father, God the Son, the same. So they put this thing in there in the ancient Egyptian divine triad with Osiris and Isis and said they're all three of the same. God the Father, God the Son, it's the same. That's the Homoousios Creed. And they took this Homoousios Nicene Creed, Apostles' Creed, 56 years later and enforced it as being the creed of the Roman government. And wanted our Coptic Egyptians, ancestors, to abide by it. And we refused to do that. See, so that was in 381 when the second council meeting was called to make official the Homoousios Nicene Creed, the Apostle Creed of the Roman government, called the Council of Constantinople I, 381. Now, let me bring you up to the most important council meeting that has ever existed on planet Earth, called the Council of Ephesus. It's in my book. The Council of Ephesus was called and brought about in 431 ABCE. What caused it to come about? See, all these council meetings was caused to come about. They just didn't jump up and say, we're going to have a council meeting tomorrow morning. Something was happening out there in the Coptic community. See, they wanted to get our grassroots Coptic Egyptians to accept this image. This is all part of that argument. You see? Now, what's the name of this image up until the Council of Ephesus? Serapis. You had two Coptic Egyptian brothers, one by the name of Eutyches. Eutyches is the father of Monophysitism. Monophysitism goes like this. The Monophysites refuse to accept a human nature for this thing here. Because Arius said that this thing was a created creature, right? And he calls what is known in history as Arianism. You want to look up Arianism? Get your encyclopedia. They tell you about it. Yep. Okay? Is that right? Jamila? That's right. She knows. Okay? You got that? Now, so Eutyches is the father of Monophysitism, which means a Monophysite refused to recognize the human nature of this thing here that we know today as Jesus the Christ, then known as Serapis. Then there was the second brother was that came along, Nestorius. At the same time that Eutyches came along with Monophysitism. And Nestorius said that the Virgin Mary, with the attachment of the Theotokos attached to her, that he could not recognize the Theotokos in the Virgin Mary. The Theotokos means the Mother of God. That's what the word Theotokos means. Look it up. Now, so what they did, the Melkite Coptic Egyptians called a council meeting that's known in history as the Council of Ephesus. To do what? To get this thing here, a human nature. That's what it was called for. In order to have a human nature, one has to be born through the body of a female. You cannot be born through the body of a dog to get a human nature. Is that right? So they had to get this thing a mother. So what they did, these Uncle Tom, Melkite, Coptic Egyptians, they went into the ancient Egyptian divine triad again. Now, at the Council of Nicaea 1, 325, they had taken Horus Jr. out, the S-U-N, and put in the S-O-N, this thing here, right? Now they're going into the ancient Egyptian divine triad, and they're taking Isis out. And they created a created creature to take her place. You know the name of that created creature? The Virgin Mary. This is history. Christianity does not go according to the tradition that they have taught the world. It don't go like that. See, I'm talking about the other side of the coin now. History, human history. Now, when they took this Virgin Mary out of the ancient Egyptian, when they took Isis out of the ancient Egyptian divine triad and put this created creature, the Virgin Mary, in, gave this created creature, the Virgin Mary, a title of Theotokos, which means the Mother of God. Okay? They gave this Virgin Mary the attributes of Isis. Okay? That's the key. When they made Ptolemy one Lagi's image into this Serapis image, they gave this Ptolemy the attributes of Osiris. See? So now, here you have the same thing being done to Isis. Giving her a title of Theotokos. This is what Nestorius fought against. You see that? So what happened, there were three brothers, three Coptic Egyptian Africans. And you check this out, Jamila. Ask anybody about the three chapters. It's known, you ever heard of the three chapters? Okay. It's called the three chapters. It's all history. The three chapters was written by three African Coptic Egyptians, but they were Melkites, to counter and oppose the Nestorians and the Monophysites at the Council of Ephesus. You see? Now, when they made the Virgin Mary to be the mother of God, now God is Serapis, and they amalgamated the two created creatures together, and they came out with the Anointed One. And the Coptic Egyptians speaking Greek said that this is the Christos. And in English, the Christos means that now this is the Christ. That's how this Christ came about, with that amalgamation of the created creatures, the Virgin Mary, with the Theotokos title attached to her, which means the Mother of God, and amalgamating the two created creatures, Serapis, together. You see that? And the Coptic Egyptians said, now this is the Anointed One. This is the Christos. And the Christos, they were speaking Greek. In English means, now this is the Christ. That's how it happened. You see? So now, Nestorius said that he couldn't recognize that Theotokos. Eutyches, the Monophysite, said, no, I'm not recognizing no human nature in no Christ. I don't care what you do. I'm not going to accept it. So now, they had three Coptic Egyptian brothers, old Uncle Tom, who wrote opposing letters against Nestorius and Eutyches at that council meeting. And it is known in history, it's in my book, as the three chapters. The three chapters written by these African brothers, Theodore of Mopsuestia, and Theodoret of Sar, C-Y-R, and Ibis of Odessa, okay, wrote what is known in history as the three chapters. You go and get you to the library and get you a set of the new Catholic encyclopedias. And you look up the 3 chapters in there, it's in there. See that? It's in there, Jamila. Now, these was opposing letters written at this council meeting. So now, what you have going on, you have 2 factions now. You have the monophysites who said that this image that we know today as Jesus Christ was a created creature, had no human nature. And now you have diaphysitic Christians. The word diaphysitic means an individual who recognizes the 2 natures in Christ. Diaphysitic. Okay? It's in my book. Now we come up 20 years later to another very important council meeting called the Council of Chalcedon, 451. The argument is still going on. Argument is still going on. They're trying to make and create a human nature still for this thing here. Okay? And they use those 3 opposing letters that was used at the Council of Ephesus at the Council of Chalcedon. Plus, guess what they did to get this thing a human nature? They used one word. You know what that word? The word is consubstantiality. The word consubstantiality means a person. That's what it means. Now, if you are a person, that means what? You're a human being. You see that? So, in order to be a person, you are automatically a human being. So they use that word consubstantiality and applied it to this thing in their dogmatic decrees, written to repudiate the argument that from the monophysites saying that this thing here had no human nature. Use that one word, consubstantiality, which means person. See? Now, I don't know nobody is telling you these things about what happened at these council meetings.
Step by step.
You see? So now, we're going to move. Now, the argument is still going on now. We're going to move from 451, I'm sorry. Council, at the close of the Council of Chalcedon in 451, guess what officially began? Christianity. Officially began. So anybody tells you, come up and tell you about a Christ before the Council of Ephesus in 431, they're historically incorrect. Anybody tell you about Christianity before the close of the Council of Chalcedon, they're historically incorrect. Anybody come up and tell you about a Christian church being in existence before 532 and 37, they're historically incorrect. We're going to get to that. Now, we're going to leave from Chalcedon. That was the 4th council meeting that happened in world history. Okay? Now, are you following me thus far? You see how this argument and how this creature was created? Okay? This is the progression of history. Okay? Now, we go up to the time of the Byzantine ruler by the name of Zeno. Zeno's time came about 474 to 491. That was his time of rule. And he tried to reconcile the 2 feuding factions together, meaning the Diaphysitic and the Monophysites. All these is Coptic Africans now. He's trying to reconcile them. And there was a man, there was a Coptic Egyptian by the name of Achaeus. Okay? Acacius. It's all in history. He wrote a dogmatic decree for Zeno. And it is known in history, what he wrote is called the Henoticon. See, this is history, world history. The Henoticon. This Henoticon decree is supposed to have reconciled the 2 factions, the Diaphysitic and the Monophysites. Okay? Now, what the Hananican consists of. It ties in and unifies and give credence and credit to and definition to the first four council meetings. Nicaea 1, 325, Constantinople 1, 381, Ephesus, Council of Ephesus, 431, and the Council of Chalcedon, 451. And with one word in there, in all these four council meetings, in this dogmatic decree called the Hananican, with one word in there, consubstantiality. Tied it all in the Hananican. But they never mentioned the word person in there. See? So he tried to get the two factions to agree to the Hananican. He said, no way, I'm not going to do that. So the feud went on. You see that? The feud went on. Until you come to Zeno's time was 474 to 491. And 482 is when he issued the Hananican that Acacius had wrote for him, this Coptic Egyptian. So you go up from 491 at the end of the rule of Zeno, and you come up to an Acacius I, okay? The succeeding Byzantine ruler after Zeno. Okay? His time was 491 to 518. He did something that's going to set up something later in history. What he did over there, he stopped the gladiator competition over there in the stadium of the Hippodrome. The gladiator competition over there was just like football over in America. So if suppose we have a president to stop and abolish football, this country would go up in smoke, wouldn't it? That's the same thing that happened over there with those demists over there. The Persenes, the Venetis and the Persenes, called the Greens and the Blues. They were opposing factions. They set it at the opposite end of the Hippodrome. And they had colors, just like the ball clubs today, having different uniforms with their color emblems on it. These demists did the same thing. See? And when he stopped the gladiator competition in Constantinople, because now Constantinople is a walled city. Okay? And when he stopped that, that's when all hell broke out. Okay? Now, we come up to the time, I'm setting you up. Come up to the time, to the successor of Anastasius I. We come up to the time of Justin I, who took control of the Byzantine Empire after the death of Anastasius I in 518. We're talking about 518 for Justin I to 532 for Justin. Okay? And he kept the enforcement of no gladiator competition can be played out in the Hippodrome. So they grumbling, these white folks. And these white folks like in this kind of game. It was a savage game. You know what gladiator competition mean, don't you? Mm-hmm. They have those long old poles and they ride on a horse and they poke each other and kill each other until they die, you know. So we don't deal with nothing like that. The savages. So anyway, he kept that in place until he died, and his nephew, Justinian I, and his wife Theodora took over the Byzantine Empire. This is where the good stuff comes in. Okay? Now you still had the argument over whether this Christ had a human nature. It hadn't gone away. They argued over this thing having a human nature for 921 years. So what Justinian did in 532, he commissioned African architects and African builders to build the world's first Christian church, known as the Church of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, Turkey. that church and university, which is the world's first university for European white men. They didn't allow women to come in there. Okay? The church and the university was staffed by African teachers. So, you want see, like I said before, Europeans did not develop in Europe. Why? They had no writing system. No writing system, you cannot have no institutions. You see that? So they developed there in Africa, beginning with the Hagia Sophia. They had the African teachers taught them. Now this is the world's first Christian church, right? Commissioned by Justinian and his wife Theodora in 532, finished 5 years later. The picture of the Hagia Sophia is right here on my book, the cover. But you see these minarets on there. That was put on there many, many years later, over 1,000 years later. Now, when they finished building the Church of Hagia Sophia, you know what date it was? December the 27th, 537. And my wife writes a very important chapter in the Historical Origin of Islam book on what happened to the Church of Hagia Sophia. Now, I said, listen to this now. People ask me, why does this Christ have a birthday on December the 25th? The birth of Christ having a birthday attached to him, or this image, this creature, because of the Hagia Sophia. The finishing of the Hagia Sophia, December the 27th. And see, for over 900 years, they celebrated on that same date, Jamila. They celebrated the same date every December the 27th to celebrate that building of that church and the creation of the Church of Hagia Sophia. The word, it was also known as the Holy Church of the Holy Wisdom, another name for Jesus the Christ. And when they moved Christianity to Europe, due to the Gregorian calendar, they lost 2 days. So you have December the 25th. See that? Uh-huh. They're clever? Well, see, Reverend Chickaming, he don't know that. He don't tell you this. He don't know this. See that? See? So now, for over 900 years, they celebrated the same date. They dressed up just like they do for Christmas here, for Christ Mass. Okay? They dress up for it. See? They give gifts and so forth and so on. Celebration that day. The birthday of Christ attached to that church. Is that something? Is that something? So now, Justinian wanted to take back the donation of Constantine from the Melkite Coptic Egyptian. That will give him the ecclesiastical power and authority over that church. That's what he wanted. He didn't want that power to be in the hands of no Africans. See? He wanted to have the ecclesiastical authority as well as the political authority. But it was in the hands of the Coptic Egyptian. So now he needs to get that out away from them, right? They refused to do that. Now, when he built that church in 532, there was a Coptic Egyptian who had the donation of Constantine by the name of Agapetus I. In order to get that donation from him, so he thought, he had Agapetus I killed. Okay? Had him murdered. And then the Melkite Coptic Egyptian appointed another brother by the name of Silverius I to take his place after the death of Agapetus I. And Justinian had his army general and his wife to take treason papers and serve on him. Say you have committed treason against the government. Okay, and they got rid of him, thinking that they can take back the donation of Constantine. Then they came to power with Vigilius, because the Coptic Egyptians, after Silverius was dismissed, the power of the donation of Constantine rested in the hand of Vigilius. Okay? And in 543, an Uncle Tom, there's always a Negro around, gonna tell white folks how to do other Negroes. You know what I mean? There's always some Armstrong Williamses around. You know, you remember Armstrong Williams, don't you? Okay, you know what he did, don't you? Okay. Here comes Theodore Acitus, a lawyer, a Coptic Egyptian Melkite lawyer, told Justinian how to take back that donation of Constantine. He said, what you do, you oppose the 3 chapters. Now, going back to that 3 chapters again now. You denounce the 3 chapters. Now, the 3 chapters was letters written by these 3 African bishops, Theodore Red, and Ivers of Edessa, against the Nestorians and the Monophysites. But now, Justinian said, denounce that these 3 chapters was wrong. Okay? And get Vigilius to take up communion with the Monophysites. See? So Vigilius said, no, I'm not going to do all that what you're talking about. You think I'm a fool, don't you? See? So that didn't work. So they called the council of Constantinople II. You see that? Constantinople II. 553. And right after that council meeting, they found Vigilius mysteriously dead. Killed him. So therefore, they took back Justinian took back the donation of Constantine. And he became the ecclesiastical authority over the Hagia Sophia. And he was able to appoint whomever he wanted, like the bishop. He appointed the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, were all Africans. So your first popes of the Roman Catholic Church, see, the Hagia Sophia was the Roman Catholic Church. The Catholic means universal church. Okay? And all Africans were appointed popes of that church, of the papas. You see? And he began to appoint the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia. You see that? Pelagius I became one of his first appointees. John III, another brother, African brother, became his second appointee after Pelagius' time went out. Okay? And the Hagia Sophia represented Rome. You see? Represented the West. So whoever sat as the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia was also the Pope of Rome. Okay? That's history. You see? So now, he has in his power the ecclesiastical authority. The patriarch of Constantinople was always a Monophysite. See? It's in my books. See? So so from then on, from Justinian on, ecclesiastical authority was in the hands of the Byzantine rulers, taken out of the Melkites. Okay? Coptic Egyptians. See? Then we're going to go up to, we're going to fast forward, and I hope I'm not boring you all. And we come up to Heracles, or Heraclius I. Okay? Vigilius' time was from 527 to 565. So now from 565, we're coming into the time of Heracles. The Melkite Coptic Egyptians and the Diaphysitic Christians are still fighting what? Over what? The human nature of Christ. Still fighting. Okay? So Heracles has another brother by the name of Sergius I, an African, to draw another decree trying to reconcile the two factions together. Okay? And that decree is known in history as the Ecthesis, or Ectheus, Ectheus. E-C-T-H-I-S, Ectheus. Okay? And that was supposed to reconcile the two feuding factions over the human nature of this Christ. Okay? But that didn't work either. That didn't work. So now, we come up to the time of Constantine III and Constans II taking over the Byzantine Empire after Heracles. And they brought up another decree. Now, the Ectheus is a decree based on monotheism and monothelitism. Tell you the difference. Monothelet means one will. Monothelit, L-I-T, means one energy. See? They're saying, let's not be so harsh in saying that this Christ had no human nature. Let's say he had one will. Let's say he had one energy. You see that? See, you go into church, you're not going to learn all of this. Huh? You're sitting up there. Huh? You don't know nothing. You see that? When the person tells you that he's a Christian, he knows nothing about himself and knows nothing about Christianity. So they took these two words, Heracles, under this new theology created by Sergius I, a Coptic Egyptian, called the Ectheus. The two words was monothelitism, L-E-T, which means one will, and monothelitism, which means one energy. So let's say that instead of no human nature. So harsh, you all. See? So the Coptic just said, no, I'm not accepting that either. Okay? Not going to accept it. Okay? So what he went on and did made the Ectheus the creed of the Byzantine government. Okay? He tried to use those terms to appease the Europeans as well as the Diaphysitic Christians in Africa.
I'm going to change the tape.
Okay. Theology?
Just history.
Huh?
Just history.
Right.
We back.
Which is, okay. Now, after the Melkites and the Monophysites couldn't get together in agreement on these two terms, monothelitism, one will, monothelitism, one energy. Heracles, like I said, made it into a law. It was done to appease the Europeans in the West, the Christians in the West, and the diaphysitic African Christians there in Africa. Okay? Didn't work. So here comes the successor of Heraclius, Constantine III and Constans II. Okay? Constans II, they were co-rulers, but Constans II had Constantine III killed to get him out of the way so he can rule. The Europeans, you know, they do anything to get power. Kill their mama. Now, Constans II said, we're going to throw out monothelitism and monothelitism. We're not going to talk about no one will. We're not going to talk about no one energy. We're going to erase it. We're going to throw it out. And he issued a decree called the Typus. T-Y-P-U-S or T-Y-P-O-S. It's in my book. He issued that decree. See? So, but that didn't settle anything. Okay? Now, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, not too far. We're going to come up time to Philippicus. Something happened. Something happened. Okay? Something happened. Before I get to Philippicus, let's go back to Justinian. We're talking about 527 to 565. When, during the reign of Justinian, 2 or 3 things important really happened. Well, one, he built the Church of Hagia Sophia. Remember me telling you about that? Now he had to deal with the unrest of the Europeans living in Constantinople because they were forbidden to use or practice the sport of
Gladiator?
what?
Was that the gladiator?
The gladiator competition. They began an uprising during his reign. And he was about to abduct and run away from his authority. He had prepared a boat to leave Constantinople. And his wife Theodora said, no, you don't do that. He said, you go and get your army general, Mansurius, and you bring down this riot. So his army general took 30,000 men, women, and children and marched them into that hippodrome and killed them. And that is a bloodbath. It brought down that riot. And that riot is known in history as the Nika riot, N-I-K-K-A. You ever heard of that? No, you haven't. I understand that. And the word Nika, N-I-K-K-A, means conquer. Greek conquer. Okay? And after he brought that riot down and things began to settle, he already built a Hagia Sophia. Then a rich merchant in Constantinople by the name of Harith ibn Gabala came to Theodora, watch this now, and said, I want you to send someone to evangelize among the Arabs or the Europeans then. And she went and hand-picked Uncle Tom Negro Coptic Egyptian by the name of Jacob Barrodeus, known also, a.k.a. as Jacob Barroday. Okay? And she commissioned him to get a group together to evangelize among the Europeans. Okay? And he got about 120 clergymen, 170 really, clergymen, including women. See, the women over there were nuns. See, they practiced celibacy. See, all of the Coptic Egyptians, whether they're Melkite or whether they was Monophysites, they practiced what is known as celibacy. And that's the reason why those women, those African Coptic Egyptian women, were called nuns. They didn't practice, they didn't have sex. You know, and that's where you get the practice of celibacy, supposedly in the Roman Catholic Church. But you know that's a big joke. With all those fags running around, you know, flushing babies down toilets and stuff. Anyway, she got this Coptic Egyptian. Now, you know, remember me saying during the time of Ptolemy I Lagi, when they refused to accept his image as a god throughout Egypt, he closed all those temples down and forbade any of the African Coptic Egyptians to build any temples. Okay? Because the Melkite Copts used the facility that the Byzantine rulers provided for them. So those are the Uncle Tom Copts. So now she goes over and get Jacob Baradaeus, and she had him a headquartered building built in Syria. Today, you know what that building is called? The Jacobite Church. The Jacobite Church, named after Jacob Baradaeus. See? It's all history. And they began to evangelize among the Europeans over there, thus causing them, and they are known in history as the Arabs. See, those are your first Arabs, you see? But let me get back to Philippicus. This is great here. Philippicus, now, the argument was always over the human nature of this thing here, right? So now, Philippicus did something. See, they were usurping each of those Byzantine, European white men. They were usurping each other so bad and so fast that you didn't know who the ruler was. You may wake up in the morning, maybe Henry Jones. The next day it means Thomas Johnson. You see? So Philippicus came along and had his picture painted and put out all over Constantinople. Say, I'm the new ruler. And all throughout the Byzantine Empire. Now what happens to a picture? When you look at a picture is, the old adage says what now? A picture is worth over 1,000 words, right? So when they look at a picture of a man, you think that the image or the icon that's drawn as a man is a man, right? Okay? The bright idea was thought up by the patriarch Gregory of the Hagia Sophia. Saying that we can paint Christ's picture like that. You see that? And we can show that Christ has a human nature. You see that? So when you see this picture of this thing here, you say that's a man, right? That was caused by Philippicus. He didn't do that on purpose. But this Coptic African brother, who was the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, said, we can do this by painting Christ's picture. And show that Christ was a man. You see that? To show that Christ has a human nature. The argument is still going on whether this image had a human nature or not between the Monophysites and the Diophysitics. You see that?
Today?
No, not today. I'm talking about then. Okay, I'm showing you the progression of history, how this thing came about to be what it is today. That's what I'm explaining. Now, when Philippicus was in power from 711 to 717, and then Leo III came in as the Byzantine ruler. And he came in because his empire was still under argument between the Diophysitics and the Monophysites. He said, we're going to cut this out. So he had two African brothers to write up a decree. Constantine the Black and another brother wrote up a decree known today in history as iconoclasm. Iconoclasm means the breaking of images. In other words, we're going to break this image. we're going to destroy that image. So Leo had all those images taken down that this Gregory had commissioned to be painted, to put around Constantinople. Because Gregory had no authority to do that, right? Because he didn't have the ecclesiastical authority was in the hands of the Byzantine ruler, not him. So he had no authority to do that. Leo was mad as hell. And they took all those images down and brought together a dogmatic decree written by these African brothers called iconoclasm, the breaking of images. That's what it means. Okay? Now, that was to appease the monophysites. You know, you're all cool down, everything's cool. In the meantime, let's move a little further after Leo III. After the death of Leo III, his son took power, Leo IV. And he had a wife by the name of Irene. Not the one on the record said, "Good night, Irene." Not that one. He had another Irene. This is Irene of history. Guess what Irene did? Because there were certain men in the Byzantine government who did not like what Leo did with iconoclasm. Okay? And they got together with Irene and said, "We'll make you the head of the government." And guess what she had to do? She had her husband killed in order for her to have that power. And they had a 10-year-old son, and the power was supposed to went to the 10-year-old son. The 10-year-old son can't rule no government, so she took it over. She became known in history as the Empress Irene. And guess what she did? She called the Council of Nicaea II to come about. You ever heard of the Council of Nicaea II? See, you don't hear nothing about. You hear about one, but you don't hear about two. Now we're going to talk about two. It's called the Iconoclasm Council meeting, 787. See, it's in my book, Historical Origin of Islam. 787. She called that council meeting to be. Okay, so called the Council of Nicaea II. And in that council meeting, she had her stooges on staff with her to write up dogmatic decrees against iconoclasm, in favor of iconoclasm. You see that? This is what she did. And long story short, in those decrees, those decrees was written to give and make this Christ God now. This is where Christ became God. At the Council of Nicaea II. And guess what else they created there? They created saints. In other words, if you want to talk to God, you got to go through saints. Now, see, all this is history. See how you see all saint this and saint that? It's not that easy. It didn't come about like that. You got to go back in history. These were the saints, the angels, and so forth. You got to. They was used as intermediators between you, the human being. If you want to get to Christ, give Christ a message so you can get a blessing. Pray. You got right. Oh, you got smart. See? So now, this is what they did at this council meeting. You see that? So now, after Irene went out, you could fast forward. We're gonna come up to the time of Photius. You ever heard of Photius? Called the Photius Philippic controversy. See, we're talking about 869 and 870. See, the Photius Philippic controversy. Photius was a Greek-speaking Coptic Egyptian African. And this is what got Photius in trouble. Bardaeus, who was a Byzantine ruler, appointed him to be the patriarch of Constantinople. Like I said, patriarch of Constantinople represents Monophysitism. The patriarch of the Hagia Sophia represented Diaphysitic Christianity. Okay? So now, Photius came along and they rushed him through the procedures to be a patriarch. They set a new precedent. And the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, another brother, resented that. Okay? So what Photius did, he retaliated by saying that, number one, he refused to recognize the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, the Pope of the Hagia Sophia. He refused to recognize him and his authority. You know, I don't recognize you. You're just another nigger. Look for a better word. Then the second thing he didn't do, he refused to recognize the Filioque in the creed. Now see how they set you up? Instead of saying he refused to recognize Christ in the creed, they said the Filioque. They used the word Filioque in place of Christ. Slick. It won't wake you up. It won't wake the Christians up. You said Filioque, they don't know what the hell Filioque is. Because it took me a long time to find the meaning of Filioque. I had to look and search and look. You know? It's not, you can't go to a regular Webster's Dictionary and look up Filioque. But see, those words are used to keep the Christians from being alarmed and awakened. He refused to recognize the Filioque in the creed. The Filioque means he refused to recognize Christ in the creed. What creed? The creed that was set up at the Council of Nicaea I, when they took this image of Serapis and inserted it in the creed and made it part of the Nicene Coptic Egyptian creed of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the Sun. He refused to recognize it. Still arguing now. This is 69 and 870. Argument still going on. From 320 BC all the way up until, now you opened over 800 years of argument over this, whether this thing had a human nature or not. You see that? You see? So, and then the third thing he refused to do, he refused to practice celibacy. He said, I'm not going to practice celibacy, man. All these fine chicks around me. You think I'm a damn fool? No, sir. He refused to do that. See? So they called another council meeting for him. The Council of Constantinople IV. That was to admonish Photius, but he held on, you know. So let me fast forward a little bit, and then we're going to come to the end of my presentation, and we're going to go into the time of the Crusades. All this has something to do with Christianity. See, the Crusades started. The first crusade was 1096. All crusades took place where? I didn't ask you. But anyway, it took place in Africa. See, people think crusades was in Europe. No. It's in Africa, known today as the Middle East. Okay? That's where the crusades were. Alexis I Komnenos. He was a Byzantine emperor. After the Seljukian Turks began to cause trouble for the Byzantine Empire and the Byzantine emperors, the Seljukian Turks erupted out of Iran in 1071. Okay, ACE. And they began to disrupt the rhythm and the power of the Byzantine emperors and that Byzantine Empire. So what they did, see, those Seljukian Turks was fierce fighters, and they would call these Byzantine rulers would call to Europe for European mercenaries to come in to help them fight the Seljukian Turks. So this is what caused the crusade to come about. And when he called for help to the west to send troops over there to save, now this is what traditional history said, to save Christendom. Damn lie. Those crusaders was not coming over there. He wanted them to come over there to save his empire. Not no Christianity. And those crusaders came over there not to save his empire either. They came over there looking for land that they can take and claim their own. Right. Okay? So, in 1096, you had Peter the Hermit. You ever heard of Peter the Hermit? And Walter the Penniless. Peter the Hermit came out of France. Walter the Penniless came out of Italy. They came over there, supposedly. By the time they got over there, they had been intercepted by so many different factions that they came over there with a little ragged group of men. Okay? But in the meantime, the rich barons began to send troops over there, men over there, armies over there. Why did the rich barons want to go over there in that land? To get land for themselves. See? And these Byzantine rulers gonna get these men, the head of the armies that came over there, say, now, when you confiscate some land and defeat these Turks, you give it back to me. Now, here and say, oh yeah, we're gonna do that. Shh. Like hell. So what happened? Solomon bar Isaac, called Rashi, the man that formulated the protocols for Judaism and for the conduct of the rich barons, okay, sent a army over there under the leadership of Godfrey of Debulian and his brother Baldwin. They came out of the north of France. And then another another rich baron sent Raymond with another army from Toulouse, all coming out of France, out of the southern part of France, Toulouse, France. And then another army was led by and commanded by Stephen of Blois, B-O-L-I-S, Blois, France. And then you had Bohemond coming out of Italy. Those are the 4 baron armies coming into and during the time of the Crusades. Okay? Into Northeast Africa, into Turkey, and the surrounding areas. See that? They didn't come over there to save no Christendom. They didn't come over there to save no land and defeat the Turks and give back the land to the Byzantine rulers. No. Okay? So what they did, they came over there and those Turks defeated them. All of those armies, except for Godfrey and his army that was sent in there by Solomon bar Isaac, called Rashi. When you study the historical origin of Judaism, they'll tell you that Rashi is in all Jewish studies. Okay? That's what they tell you. Okay? Now, what In the army of Godfrey were Christian soldiers. Godfrey himself was a Christian. Is that correct, Annetta? The emblem of Godfrey was a red cross with 4 other red crosses in that big red cross. You had it had a big red cross like that, right? And you had a little cross here, a little cross there, and a little cross here, and a little cross there. That is called the equestrian cross. Okay? Went on to be what? The emblem of the Red Cross that we have today. In his army, you had these Christian soldiers, right? They came over and they seized Jerusalem in 1099. And they built themselves a walled city around Jerusalem. You see that? And they lived inside of the walled city. But they paid their way to stay there. So the Turks would not bother them. They paid a dihemi tax. See? A dihemi tax is paid to a sovereign power for me to stay where I want to stay on this land, which is your land, without being in other words, rent. Okay? And those inside that compound that they built, guess what organized within the Godfrey and Baldwin's army? They began to organize for the very first time. Another. For the very first time, they began to organize. They're known in history as. Yes. Please, sweetheart.
Okay, the Knights Templar.
The Knights Templar. The Knights Templars became into being. They came over in 1099 in Jerusalem, and in 1118 they organized themselves and began to call themselves the Knights Templars. Okay, and the Hospitallers was over there too. That's the White Cross. And then, see, and then in 1118, 10 years later, they got their emblem, which is the compass. The compass is nothing but 2 pyramids, one up and one down. Okay? And those 2 pyramids is known today also as the Star of David. Star of David. Okay? One up and one down. Coming from the Knights Templars. They also went on to become the first Freemason group on earth. Scottish Rites. Okay? This is all history. They paid their way over there. They paid their way to stay there. Okay? Then other rich barons began, now listen to this, began to go to them because Solomon Bar Isaac was a rich baron out of Treves, France, who was a wine grower, vineyard owner, the one that laid the foundation for Judaism and the protocols for the rich barons. Okay? He said, when you get over there, find this land, any kind of land, and build me a temple. Okay? So his name was Solomon Bar Isaac, called Rashi. So they built a temple of who? Solomon. Inside that wall compound. And then the other rich barons began to do the same thing, having these Knights Templars to build them temples over there. And that's how, from the rich barons giving them money to stay there, that's how they was able to pay their dihemi tax for 192 years. until 1291, when the Mamelukes out of Egypt ran them out of there. And they went into the island of Rhodes, they ran into Scotland and began to create what is known as Scottish Rites. That's your first, those were your first practitioners of Judaism, the religion. But it wasn't like it is today. But that goes into another history. So then you go into still with these crusaders coming over there, fighting. It's all in my book. I wrote it down. And I brought you up to where the Byzantine emperors was segregated and only allowed to operate within the double-walled city of Constantinople until Muhammad II came along in 1453 and took a cannon and blew a hole in the side of the city of Constantinople and entered there and took over the Hagia Sophia and made it into a mosque. That's the Hagia Sophia. And before that, John VIII, I told you, went into Florence, Italy, at the Council of Ferrara and gave up the donation to Constantine, and then that's when they moved the seat of Christianity into Europe. And the rest is history. So with that, I'm going to close my lecture out. And if you have any questions, I'll take a few quick questions. We won't linger long. And then, you know, we can end my lecture that way. You got to give me an applause. And then Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
When did Islam come in there?
Islam does not come in until the Quran is created. And the Quran was created by Jews. They began to write and create the book that we know today as the Quran. They began to write that book in 1870 in Syria. Okay? You're not listening. 1870 in Syria. Jewish scholars from France began to create that book. It was the Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France, sending a group of rabbis and scholars and writers into Syria. Because during that time, they had Monophysitism. I'm sorry, Mohammedanism. I'm getting a little tired. They're having Mohammedanism then. Okay, it's in my book. But to get to the Islam part, always remember, Islam is a religion based upon a book called the Quran. The Quran and the religion called Islam was created by Jews. They created that religion by creating what is known as the Quran. Okay, 1870. It took them, when they began to write and create this book that we know today as the Quran, and it took them 49 years, okay, to complete that book called the Quran. And in 1919, the Arabs accepted that book. In 1919 now, after World War I. World War I was from 1914 to 1918. In 1919, the Arab world accepted what is known as the Quran. And they had, guess when they had the first meeting in Islam's history? 1926. It's in my book. I'm the only one that's bringing it out.
So the Crusades wasn't fought between the Muslims and the first Crusade wasn't between the Muslims and the Christians?
No. That's what tradition says that. History doesn't say that. See, history says that these crusaders came over there. They weren't interested in saving no Christianity. Okay, they wanted land over there.
I think it's important kind of to bridge us a little bit. But they were paying a toll or dihemi to whom? I think it's important to mention.
That was paying a dihemi to the Turks, to the Seljukian Turks of Ottoman Turks over there. Okay, that's who they was paying a dhimmi to. Like I told you, the word dhimmi means a tax. And then those later years, those Knights Templars became dhimmi bankers. Okay, they collected the taxes for the capitalists who loaned money to the rich monarchs and merchants over in Europe. And they became tax collectors. They were called dhimmi, tax collectors. And Jesse Jackson called them Hymies. Okay? And you see, you spell dhimmi, D-H-I-M-M-I. Okay? If you take the D away, and you put, in place of the I, you put Y in there, still I and Y is the same, interchangeable. You got Hyme. Okay? So, that's how the Quran came about. Without the Quran, you have no Islam. And the Jews wrote the Quran and created the religion called Islam by creating the Quran. And that Quran, it took them 49 years to complete and accepted by the Arab world in 1919 in Cairo, Egypt. Those Jewish writers and scholars were sent over there by the Alliance Universal of Paris, France, sent them over there to do that. Okay? And the first meeting in Islam's history was 1926.
The components of the boy, I'm sleepy too. The components of the book, the Muslim book, the Quran, the components of it. What makes it up?
Well, you got surahs in there. Okay? The surahs mean chapters. Well, that's what the Jews got that. They got that from the Jews. The Jews wrote that and created surahs. Instead of chapters, they said surahs. You studied Judaism, they said the surah was in Iraq. Okay? And that, they call it in Iraq Babylon. It was in Babylon. That's where the Torah, a center where the Torah was studied. Okay? So I put it in my book. So that's one of the aspects. And then they say, see, the first God of Islam was not Allah. It was Rahman. The name Rahman, the compassionate, preceded every chapter in the Quran created by Jews. And then they dropped Rahman and they got Allah. And they took Rahman and boosted Rahman up and gave him another function. What function is that? Rahman. Huh? Ramadan. See? That's what they did. This is history. They made Ramadan out of this. See? Another thing from the Jews. See? The Day of Atonement. Ashura, the Jewish Ashura. Meaning the Day of Atonement. They made Ramadan for the Muslims. For the Arabs. See, this is all history. So people sitting up, the Muslims were watching, they don't know what they're talking about. Islam alaikum, alaikum salam. They don't know what they're talking about. The Jews created the religion for them. And they don't even know that. Little Walter Williams, comes along and tells the world, the African world, this is what's happening with Islam, guys. Little Walter Williams.
Outside of the surah, the other components, the Old Testament.
Well, you got, see, what makes up the Quran, I'm glad you brought that up. What makes up the Quran, like I told you before in the previous lecture, is the two sets of books. The Old Testament, which is the Pentateuch, and Psalms, written by Jewish writers, and the four Christian Gospels. That's your Quran there. Now, they tell the Muslims that the angel Gabriel taught the Prophet Muhammad in 622 AD what God wanted Muhammad to give to mankind. Muhammad was illiterate. That's how the story goes. And that he memorized by way of mnemonics, which means memory, all of the Quran that was given to him by the angel Gabriel. You see that? And that he dictated to his scribe what the angel Gabriel had taught him. Okay? Thus creating the Quran, thus creating Islam. But now wait, now hold it. Here comes little Walter Williams. He comes along and says, well, something's wrong with that. Because if I investigated the angel Gabriel. And I found out that angel Gabriel was a little bird.
Mm-hmm.
So now how can a little bird teach a supposed human being anything? Suppose Sir Boz will bring Dr. Walter Williams to this institution to give a lecture, and I end up being a little bird. Huh? You all are human beings out there. I'd be asking, may I Lord help? You look. Anyway, it don't work. And guess who taught the angel Gabriel? The angel Israfil. Israfil is one of the archangels of the four angels of Islam. Israfil is a six-tongued hairy monster. Six-tongued. Hairy monster. See, you got the angel Gabriel, Israfil, Raphael, and Michael. Those are the four angels of Islam. Okay? So now how can a bird teach anybody? How can a six-tongued hairy monster who taught the angel Gabriel? Huh? And then, now how did Jewish writings get into Islam, the book called the Quran?
That was my question.
How did he do it? Jews put it in there.
But my question is also the continent which is now known as Saudi Arabia, and the people that they call Ethiopians that were once inhabitants of Arabia before the people that you see of my complexion or a little bit lighter, they call Arabs. How did the infusion of Judaism create Islam? Were they there? Because when you say Jew, you're talking about the Caucasian.
Did you? No. You talking about? See, you think Jew is a race?
No, it isn't.
All right, wait. Now, don't say you think about Caucasian. Well, Sammy Davis Jr. was not Caucasian. He was a Jew.
Yeah, but we're talking about back then.
Well, no, we're talking about anybody of any race, creed, or color can embrace a religion.
Right.
So you don't say it was Caucasian.
Well, you said the Jews of France
Sent a group into Syria for the sole purpose of creating literature known today as the Quran for the Mohammedan world, for the Arab world. That's how it happened. It was just okay, you take, you heard of the Falashas?
Right.
Okay.
The Kushim?
Let's deal with the Falashas.
Okay.
The Falashas of Ethiopia, is that correct?
Correct.
It was that same group, the Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France, sending Joseph Halevi into Ethiopia to create what is known today in history as the Falasha Jews. They did that. No one is telling you this, but they did that. Okay? In 1867, Joseph Halevi came into Ethiopia. The next time I'll come, I'll elaborate on that. Okay? So now here you have the same Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France, sending a group of writers, rabbis, and scholars over there in Syria to create literature for the Mohammedan Arabs. Because Judaism already had published their literature in 1475. The Christians had their literature printed in 1516 under Nova Mention. But the Mohammedan world had no literature.
Because it was also the Ottoman Empire that actually spread Islam.
It's not, the Ottoman Empire did not spread Islam, they spread Mohammedanism.
Okay.
That's what they spread, not Islam.
Okay.
See, Islam is a religion based upon a book called the Quran. Without the Quran, you have no Islam. And I said before that before the book of the Quran was created, you had Mohammedanism. So the Ottoman Turks, beginning in 1300, and they began to enforce and the spread of Mohammedanism. See, the life and biography of Muhammad came from one man, an African out of Spain. It's in my book. His name was Sheikh Al-Akbar Muhyiddin Ibn Ali, a.k.a. as Ibn al-Arabi, alias Muhammad. See that? Now, they took his life and biography and made the Prophet Muhammad of Islam from there. Okay? He died. He was born in Spain in 1165. And he died in 1240 in Africa. And his followers and disciples began to spread his teaching, and is known today as the Mohammedanism. And when this was in 1239, and then 61 years later, the Ottoman Turk and the Ottoman Empire came up, 1300, and they took this Mohammedanism theology that the disciples and the followers of Ibn al-Arabi had been teaching, and they began to enforce that throughout the Ottoman Empire, all over North Africa, all into Egypt. They went up into the Balkans. That's part of the Ottoman Empire. They went into southern Russia, all up into the parts of Russia and so forth, enforcing Mohammedanism. They said they walk up to an individual. They say, "Muhammad or die." They took a big sword. Now you want to embrace Muhammad, huh? Or do you want to die? This is how they did it. See, had nothing to do with Islam. Islam wasn't there. Islam is a religion based upon a book called the Quran. Without the book called the Quran, you have no Islam. That religion was created by Jews. But the Muslim world, they don't know that. If you go and get a book, an encyclopedia called the Shorter Encyclopedia of Islam, on page 390, it's in my book, they'll tell you in the Shorter Encyclopedia of Islam, there's no biography in existence for the Muhammad. Then it goes on to say on that same page that they have no historical data for a Muhammad being in Mecca. They tell you that. So without Muhammad in Mecca, see, Muhammad is just like Moses. Moses has to be in a basket floating down the Nile River in order for that to be a Moses and Pharaoh's daughter, and you know the story. In order for that to be a Muhammad, he has to be born in Mecca. That's tradition is telling you that. But Islam, in Shorter Encyclopedia of Islam, says there's no data for that. They don't have no record of that, no Muhammad being in Mecca. You see? So you have to use history in order for you to get out of this confusion. See? So I'm the person to come along, little Walter Williams, out of Chicago, okay? Don't have no degrees. Okay, I don't have no degree. I have a high school diploma. But we know where I got my doctorship from? You all. I got it from my African community. I don't want no white folks to give me a doctor's degree. Huh? My African community says that I am Dr. Walter Williams. You see that? See? So that's you see, but I had to do all this study to come and bring you this information. See? I had to do that. I'm constantly, see, I study every day. If I'm not going to rest on my laurels. I'm not going to do that. If I do, it's over for Walter Williams. I got to keep going. I study all the time. See? I got to keep my mind going. See, since I'm a young man, I got to keep going. See? So these are notes here. Okay? I got to study these notes a little bit more and put it up here. See, so I can come off and bring you dates and things that happen on those dates. See? That's what you need. That's what we need. That's what Dr. John Henry Clark said. said our people do not know history. They need to study European history as well as their own history. So I've done that. Yes.
Going back to the young man's question back here, regarding the fighting that took place between the Crusades and the Seljuk Turks. He was saying Muslims, but we know that he meant the Turks. That's who it was with. Would you not describe them as monophysites?
Yeah, they were a faction of monophysitism. They didn't believe in no, they didn't accept no Christ, no Jesus Christ as a human being. Because Jacob Bardaeus, who evangelized among them in 543 under the suggestion and the appointment of the wife of Justinian I, Theodora. You remember me telling you that they built for Jacob Bardaeus this building that is known today as the Jacobite Church, to use as a headquarters so he can go out among the Arabs and evangelize among them and bring them a monophysitic theology. And this is where you get, and see, when Ibn al-Arabi, Sheikh al-Akbar Muhyiddin, Ibn Ali, a.k.a. as Ibn al-Arabi, alias Muhammad, he came along with monist theology. See? And when you deal with Islam, they always going to tell you about the one, right? That comes from monist theology, a monism. What is monism? Monism says that everything comes from one substance. That's monism. See? So when Ibn al-Arabi came along, alias Muhammad, that was his theology. It's in my book, Historical Origin of Islam. And this is what monism means. And that's where you get monism, or that one concept that's attached to Islam.
Is monotheism the same thing as monotheism? It's the same thing as monotheism?
No, not quite. It's on the same order. Yes, I would say on the same order, but different wording.
Yeah. I would, yes, I would say it grew out of that. Okay, it's important to take our minds back briefly to the polemic or the argument between the monophysites and the Diophysites.
Right.
Okay, and then you have an evolution, more or less, of the monophysites who began to embrace the the monism, okay, which eventually becomes Mohammedanism, which eventually becomes Islam. So it's an evolutionary process, okay, growing out of the original polemic between, you could say, the Christians in a sense, the Diophysites and the Monophysites. Okay, so there was a connection there. So yes, that was the battle.
So Rashid was black, everything was black, Rashid was black, when did the Quran, they were black?
I was...
Who? Did the Quran? No, these were white folks out of France. See, and see, the same group, the Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France. You ever heard of the Limas? Supposed to be a Jewish sect down around South Africa. You ever heard of the Limas? You remember that? They went in there, the Jews took some DNA samples from their jaws.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Okay, well now, guess how they got to be Jews? That same group, Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France, sent Karl Marx down in 1891 to create this. Like they sent Joseph Halevi into Ethiopia to create what is known as the Falashas.
Wow.
So no one is telling you this but little Walter Williams. You see that? This is what's happening. Yes.
Would this be a correct statement that the polemic really did not stop until we got Mohammedanism between the Diophysites and the Monophysites? Would that be a correct statement?
I would say yes.
Okay, so you get it? Okay. All right, need I say more? Okay. when you got that definite split,
Right,
okay,
right.
that's when the polemic stopped.
921 years
You ended
later.
up with the Christians, and you ended up eventually with the Muslims. You had the Monophysites in there. Okay, so the Monophysites became your Muslims later. Okay, so you got it?
Great.
So it grew out of Christianity. Okay, so that's why the connection, and that's where the book goes. That's why the historical origin of Islam is a continuation, actually, of the historical origin of Christianity. That's the evolution.
Wow.
See, this is it. We're not talking about no theology. Let us pray. Islam alaikum. And all that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about human history. What happened in human history? What happened to our ancestors in human history? This is what happened to our ancestors. This is pertaining to us. See? So we have to learn history to break all this up. For you to understand who you are, what happened to our ancestors, and do something about it. And not be fooled anymore. Because when you embrace a religion, guess what a religion will do? Take your life away from you. It will steal your life. Because that religion is not telling you who you are and what you was born with. It's telling you to take all of your life spirituality and give it to the religion. So that's stealing your life, isn't it? Then all religions will do what? They will lie to you and deceive you. Because they tell you about a dead white man on the cross living on earth as Jesus the Christ. And tell you about a faceless white man riding on a camel, talking about the Prophet Muhammad. They're talking about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses, which the Jews are saying never existed. They're saying it themselves. Yes,
The young man is gone now. You said you would add another side effect?
yes.
Inferiority complex?
Inferiority complex. I got to add that. These religions will give you an inferiority complex. You will feel inferior because you as a human being cannot live up to your Savior. You see? You cannot live up to the God of these religions. See, all religions have a God. Christianity has a dead white man on the cross called Christ. Islam has Allah. Judaism has Yahweh and Jehovah. Buddhism has this fat dude with titties and a diaper called Buddha. Huh? See? All male. Okay? See? So therefore, you cannot live up to these. The Christianity said that all of you, people of humanity, are dirty rags.
Mm-hmm.
See, so therefore, you feel bad. I can't live. In order for me to feel good, I got to embrace this dead white man on the cross and be a Christian. See? But you're practicing inferiority coming from these religions. You're inferior. Did you want to add something to that?
I had a child who was helping to bring out this point. The couple and the two children sitting back here. And he was responding to the picture of the little boy with the Christ image looking down over him. And he was simply saying that puts folks of color in an inferior position. You got this white God looming over you. Okay, so therefore you will always feel inferior to that.
Correct.
Because it's being presented to you as the superpower.
Mm.
There's something? You accept this thing, take it into your consciousness, into your subconscious mind. It superimposes on you and make you inferior. Because you know that your God and your Savior is a European image. Not an image of you or any member of your family. So it makes you feel inferior. This is what Arnetta was saying, this is what the man was saying. That's true. Absolutely true.
So, Mr. Williams, so the significance of these religions is actually to strip us of our divine spirituality and knowledge of inner self or something like that?
That's what it is. That's what it's designed for. Yes, sir. And that's how they control you. See? They can't control you with an individual, independent mind. They can't control you that way.
So once you begin to step out of that, and you start to seeking, actual historical facts, then there's a problem.
No, it's not.
No, I'm saying you would oppose a problem
To who?
to those
Yeah.
in authority of those religions who control those religions.
No, listen.
You don't have to tell you don't question God and
Well, don't be around them to tell you that.
No, I know. I'm
And
not
when you
around, I'm
divest
just
your-
saying, I'm just
Yeah. But when you divest yourself away from that, you don't have that to worry about anymore. See, like a brother in L.A., I was giving a lecture last year in L.A., and he told me, he said, during the question and answer, he said, we should go and pick up arms and kill the white man. I said, are you crazy fool? I said, here we don't even own a hairpin factory. You understand me? You know? He said, well, what can I do? I said, what can we do? I said, all you have to do is change your mind. No one control what you're thinking up here. Just like the Arab in your neighbor got a store, right? If you don't want that Arab there, you don't go to his store. He's going to close it down anyway. You change your mind, say, I'm not going to the Arab store. If everybody unifies and say we don't go to the Arab store, the Arab's got to close his door. And there's nothing you can do. He can't go around and shoot you because you didn't come to the store. So you change your mind. That's all you have to do. Change your mind. Say, I'm not going to be a Christian anymore. I'm go to Reverend Chicken Wings Church and turn in your cross and this dead white man and say, and here's your Bible and here's your God. I don't want this anymore in my life. I'm getting all this trash out of my life. I'm taking back my life. This is what you have to do. Take back your life.
That's how they control the world.
What made these Coptic Africans put all of this stuff in place with these Europeans?
Because the European is still a European back then, like he is a European today.
Right.
Okay? You have what make Condoleezza Rice go with the regime of George Bush? What make Colin Powell and Clarence Thomas favor, power, the little crumbs that they can get from being associated with them and being their stooges. That's all that is.
But it was obvious that the Europeans are coming to them and they weren't accepting them into their secret society.
That's correct.
The Coptic Africans.
Right?
Then the power was with the Africans. So I don't. You understand what I'm saying?
The power was with the Africans. The grassroots didn't accept that. That's what the argument was over for 921 years. The grassroots didn't accept this white image of Serapis or Christ. But the Greeks found a group that went along with them, like Armstrong Williams, went along with George Bush. And other Negro preachers went along with the base program. Okay? So you have that. That's for personal reasons and personal gains and so forth and so on. That's all that is.
But I don't understand what the Coptic Africans stood to gain. What was the actual trade-off? If the power was with the Coptic Africans and the Europeans had to actually come to them to legitimize their thing, what was the gain of the Coptic Africans? That's what I.
But here's what you have to understand. The power was with the Greeks and the Romans. They ruled Egypt. Okay? That they had the power. But they did not have the power to create a religion. They didn't know how to do that. So they went to you, this African, and made him an offer that he could not refuse. Okay? Say, hey, you can ride around in a Cadillac. Your wife can have mink coats. You can live in fine homes. All that, you just come on with me. Okay? We leave those rest of those Negroes on out there. Let them do what they want to do. See, so that's how it's done. The power was with the Greeks and the Romans. Okay? But to make what the Greeks wanted and get from them, it was in the power of the Africans. And they betrayed that. That's the reason why I said the Melkite, Uncle Toms of antiquity. That's the reason why I labeled them there. Yes, sir.
You said 1926 was the first conference of Islam, right?
The first meeting in
First
Islam's
meeting.
history.
Where was it at? And what was coming out of this meeting?
It was in what they was doing. See, the fall of the Byzantine government it was defeated in World War I. World War I is 1914 to 1918.
Okay.
The last of the Ottoman Sultanate was in 1919. The Sultanate, or the Sultan, who was the head of the Ottoman Turkish Empire, whoever it may have been, was also the head of the Mohammedan world. You got that?
Okay.
It was the head of it. So since the Ottoman Turkish Empire fell, there was no Sultanate anymore. So what they was trying to do was, since they got Islam with this Quran coming out in 1919, they was looking for a caliph. He wanted someone to be the head of Islam, a caliph. That's what they was looking for. They was looking for a caliphate. And the first meeting that they had was in 1926 in the area they call Mecca. If you go to Mecca, see, Mecca is a very modern city. And that was the world's first Hajj. 1926.
Based on this meeting.
Based on this meeting, yeah. Now, the Muslims, me and my wife, we took a trip, a 10-day trip from Chicago, and we flew into D.C., rented a car, and began to travel. And we stopped in this mosque in Washington, D.C. And while we were there, long story short, we always buy literature of always snooping around, trying to find something. See, I'm Sambo. Okay? You know, Sambo and a Little Black Sambo. I'm not Little Black Sambo, but what's that? Uncle Tom. Remember Uncle Tom's Cabin? Sambo is the one that did all the talking. He told white folks stuff. Uncle Tom didn't do anything. Uncle Tom can see 10 of us get killed. He wouldn't say nothing. He's an old Uncle Tom. But Sambo is the one that talks, see, and tells, right? So I'm the Sambo of the African community. I come and talk to you and tell you things. You see? So I'm your Sambo. So we was at this mosque, my wife and I, and we wanted to get into the library there, to look around their books. So we were sitting out in the open air on a bench, she and I, and all of a sudden, they said that the librarian would be back in about an hour, so we waited. So all of a sudden, a brother walks up to us and handed me 3 hardback books. I said, okay, thank you. And I left. And when I got home, back to Chicago, after we made our 10-day trip, I looked in this book. It's called The Sword and the Holy Quran, written by Abdul Aziz, his son, King Saud. That's where Saudi Arabia was named after. And in this book, it had the first meeting in Islam's history. I said, wow!